Hi, this is Adrian with Powercode, and in this training session, we're going to cover all the stuff, or not quite all the stuff, but a lot of the small things that hasn't been covered in the previous sections that we're just going to cram all into this video. We're going to talk about adding services, canceling services, when customers move, the schedule multi-view, setting up permissions, the difference between statuses and groups and how to use those, our multi-branding feature, contracts, and then our feedback form. So jumping right into it, we talked about setting up a customer from the Add Customer wizard, but once you already have a customer or they're looking to upgrade, it's real easy to do that. You just go into the customer, go down to their individual customer navigation bar, hit services, and then you can just add a service from right here. Now again, it's important to remember that if you're adding an internet service, it will replace the current internet service. Now for each of these, you can choose whether you want to prorate it, meaning whether or not you want to give an additional credit or charge from today's date through the end of the month, or just leave this month alone and start either the billing or the credit at the beginning of next month. To choose one, you just go right down here, choose whatever you'd like to do. Let's say we're going to have advanced hosting. We're not going to bother prorating that for now, and we're going to add it to the account. Now you'll see this is a stack of all the services that are on this account. In this case, that advanced hosting went right to the top. We can see that we have it's active and there's custom fields. Again, we mentioned be careful using custom fields here because if we ever remove that service or change it to something else, you'll lose what was ever in this custom field. You can change the quantity if necessary here. Great for if you're doing that billable hours. So maybe you have $125 per hour in here, change that quantity to 2 or 3. There's a price override option here as well. I'd be very careful using that. You do have the ability, of course, you can set it up with permissions to have a different price than the standard catalog price in here. Other than maybe a wide open service that really varies, it's best to leave the price alone and then apply a monthly discount to it. Again, that's so you can keep track of all the different credits and discounts you're adding. You're making sure those are hitting the proper account class. You're also making sure that you're able to track your trends for what's happening with those individual services. So again, you can do it here, but the recommendation is to kind of leave that alone. So let's say this customer calls up to cancel. There's a few different ways you can do that. The recommended method is you dive over here into the billing tab, and you can easily just click close this account on next billing day. It gives you a warning here, and if you hit close that account, it will actually schedule that right here in the scheduled events, letting us know that it's going to go from status to not active on this date. The reason you do that is so you don't have to deal with giving back credits. A lot of times customers may push back a little bit on that, but you can basically say, hey, you already paid through the end of the month. We're going to just let that roll through. You're going to receive service through that time. And then you don't really have to worry about anything else. Right before the billing cycle hits, it'll go ahead and set this account to not active. There's some neat ways you can flow that as well with statuses, which we'll talk about in a moment. Now, what happens if a customer moves into an address that already has your service, or one of your current customer moves addresses within your network? Well, that's up to you how you exactly want to handle that. Our recommended process is to actually close out the current account, regardless of the situation, and then add a new account. The reason for that is, sometimes you get people where a grandson moves in, granddaughter moves into the grandparents' house, and they're now taking over the payments, that sort of thing. Even if it's someone that's within the family, it's really helpful to start a fresh account because then you're able to see the payment history for the new person as well as their behavior for calling in and creating tickets and any issues that may be there. It's funny how a problematic connection for one person might be great for another or vice versa. So then from there, you can go right into the overview and also definitely note here the previous account, either if it's someone that's moved out and the new person moved in, or if it's in the family or whatever the reason is. It's really helpful to have that trail. So if someone moves in, you can still go back and troubleshoot the previous person's tickets and issues they've had. From there, it's also really easy from the actual piece of equipment itself, where you can go into more here, pull open this piece of equipment, and you can transfer the device to the new account. That way, you don't have to worry about interruption of service. You just look up the new customer, hit transfer, and it brings over all the probes, graphs, information like that from the old customer to the new customer. So now that we've talked about some of these basic functions dealing with the accounts, let's take a look at our permissions that I've referenced many times throughout the training videos. From the Configure tab, go down to System Configuration, and then Permissions. Now, Powercode is shipped with a set of default hard-coded permissions groups. You might bang your head against the wall if you try to edit them. They are not editable. The preferred method is to go in and find a permissions group that's closely similar to what you're looking for, and then jump over and actually just edit or clone that group, Once that group is cloned, you can edit the group and then go in and take a look at it. So we can see here that this T1 tech was actually cloned from a previous permission group. We're going to go in here and edit it now. And the first thing we see are the group members that are part of this permission level. And you can have people in multiple permission groups, and they'll have the tightest level of permissions applied to their name regardless of which group they're in. So from here we can go through and see all the different options. We truly do have very granular permissions within Powercode. Just keep looking through some of these, and it's set up by none, view, edit, or delete. Anytime you see a black arrow, be aware that when it hit view or edit, you have a lot more options within that group. So as we've talked about many times, for this particular technician, you might want to say, okay, we don't want them to deal with check or cash. We only have our finance department do that. But yeah, we definitely want anyone to be able to take a credit card. We don't want them to put on a custom charge or a credit. We do want them to take an e-check payment though, and move right down the list here. We also still want them to be able to put on a one-time charge or credit. That way, if they're selling a router or anything else, we give them the ability to do that. And then you go down here and hit save at the bottom. Again, there are a tremendous amount of permissions in here, all the way down the line. Reports is the other one I highly suggest you go in and drill down. There's definitely some of these ticketing dashboards you're probably going to want to give people access to. Maybe even for the installers, you let them see their completed jobs and see what they've done for their completion notes. But again, you don't want them to necessarily be able to see all the financial impact information. Let's now take a look at account statuses and account groups. We dive back into our favorite customer here. So first off, we have the account status. The status applies to what is actually impacting the customer's account. As you'll see called out right here, it's very important to know that active is the only status that will allow a customer to have internet. If you change a customer away from active, they will immediately lose their connection to the internet. We have active and delinquent, as well as a couple others pre-built in. And you'll see lead is in there as well as in pre-install, which happens as you flow your customer through. You can also create custom statuses from items, custom items, and customer statuses. That brings up this page right here, where you can add as many new statuses as you'd like. Why might you want to add these statuses? Well, not only can it help before the sale, but then after the sale, you can track what's happened with your customer. Or in this case, we've added this not serviceable status, which means on the map, we can actually see a smattering of all our different customers. Another way to use it is if you pick up equipment from a canceled customer, as we saw just a moment ago, you can have the system automatically set them to not active. Well, a great flow for that is a lot of times someone actually might move into their house if they were a move out for cancel. So if you leave that not active for a month, and then at the next month, you take all the people who have been not active for a month and move them into a canceled customer status, well, these statuses can be displayed right here on the map. And then you could say, all right, if they were a canceled customer or something like that we had in here, you could click and then your installers would know, hey, there's equipment I can go pick up at that location. Or on the other end, as I've mentioned before, Powercode only charges for active or delinquent customers, customers that are receiving service that you were billing. That means any single person who calls in or that you talk to, by all means, grab their name, address, email, and phone number and plug them into the system. Then you can go here on your map, create a not serviceable status, and then you can start to get an idea of where people are requesting your service. So now you go, boy, next time we put up a new tower, we should probably look at doing it right here on Mud Lake. We have gotten all these requests for service that we were not able to get to right here. So that's a little bit about services. Again, services are mappable, but they must be active to actually receive internet. So keep that in mind as you're building those out. Next, we're going to talk about customer groups. Customer groups are a little bit more versatile than statuses and probably more applicable in a bunch of different situations you might run into. You can set your custom groups by going into Items, Customer Groups, and then you can add a new customer group, calling it whatever you want. Now, there is a 1-to-1 customer group ratio. A customer cannot be in more than one group, so it needs to be linear. We're just going to call this new group. And there it is. So now if we go back to our customer, we can go right down here into edit the account profile. And we can choose which group we want it in. And that's our new group. Now, groups are used by a number of different things within Powercode. As we saw before on the services training, you can restrict certain services or items to specific groups. So that's really handy when there are discounts. Maybe there's a certain area of your network that you only provide certain services to, or maybe there's an area of your network where they're eligible for extra discounts for whatever reason. You can make sure that those type of items can only be applied to customers that fall within this group. Another way to use groups is for any third-party installers or referrals. I know some of our customers actually have a group set up by every type of referral source they get, and then they give their referral source an actual login to Powercode. People go and put the actual name, address, phone number in as a lead, then the ISP goes out, works it through, and the reseller can track it all the way through install to know when it's there, and then of course they have some type of compensation arrangement worked out. The other place that groups is relevant is when it comes to sending your mass notification. So if you're doing your outgoing proactive emailing, you can restrict that message by specific types of groups. There's probably dozens of other ways to use it, but those are the most common right there. Now within Powercode, you probably have your main company brand, but if you operate multiple companies, or a great example is if you choose to buy a company, you can multi-brand for an indefinite amount of time, or for the entire duration of holding on to those customers. This is a great way if you purchase a new company, you can maintain that original company's brand while you slowly migrate customers over and bring them up to your level of quality of service. Another idea might be if you have your standard quality of service that you require a certain amount of upload before you install a customer. But you get those customers out there that are just begging you for a meg and they say they don't care. Boy, you can just spin up another brand and company name, make sure it doesn't tarnish your original one, and then put all those new customers at the best guess, take what you get type service, and put them on that new brand. What that'll do is within Powercode, it'll actually create these, you can create different names here. These are just the same one, a couple different places. But when it comes to emailing both on triggers and your system events, it would show each individual company's name depending on which association they have, which we can see right here, as well as on the invoicing. All the invoicing would have a different logo, different remittance address. On your emails, you could have a different domain they're sent back to. So from your side in Powercode, everything looks the same. But to your customers on the outside, if you have two customers next door that both are from different companies, they right there would think they're using two completely different systems, and they would have completely different communication, and all of the remittance and visibility, including the account portal, would be scanned based on whichever company association they were attached to. We've mentioned a couple times the ability to have contracts, which would live right here on the right, and you can attach these contracts to different internet services. So when someone either moves on to a new service or upgrades or something like that, they need to accept the terms of use or the duration-based contract before they're actually allowed onto the internet. They'll get that same red screen saying you do not get service until you agree, unless they digitally sign that. To set that up, you go back here into items again, into contract templates, and then you can just add a new contract template. Name it. You can give it a time or leave it blank if it's perpetual, like a terms of use might be. You of course want it to be selectable. That's again just for legacy type contracts if you choose to change it. And then we give you your free form here. Type in whatever you want. For the customer, when they go to get on the internet, they're going to be able to read that and then have a box where they can actually sign it. The last thing we're going to look at in this video is our little help tab right here. You can check for updates, open a support ticket. There's some knowledge base and documentation here, but the biggest one is this feedback button. And I do want everyone at your company to be aware of this. This is how you can talk to us, share your ideas, let us know if there's anything wrong. We love this feedback. If there's something that you want to do, even if it's not covered in any of these training videos, there's a good chance we actually have a way to do it for you already built in. And if not, let us know. Your ideas are what constantly allows us to make the software better and improve upon it. So if anybody has an idea for a feature request, throw it in, click here, let it know, and we'll get it on the big board. So that covers everything we set out to in this video here. As always, if you have any questions, you want to get something done, anything else at all, please don't hesitate to call us at 920-351-1010 or reach out at support@powercode.com. Thanks so much.